Good evening, panel, and thank you. Can a country which has no Bill of Rights or Anti-Corruption Commission, where the federal police raid media offices and a journalist's home, and the government prosecutes whistleblowers, where public servants cannot even anonymously criticise government policy, where freedom of information requests are expensive, often delayed, denied or redacted, and with minimal parliamentary sitting days, be considered a modern liberal democracy? Or would it be better described as an authoritarian state where the government is against transparency, accountability and individual rights? If this is so, how concerned should we be, and should we be protesting en masse before we have nothing left to lose?
Alan Tudge.
I mean, to be honest, and with due respect to the questioner, I thought, it's a ridiculous question to suggest that Australia is an authoritarian state is just frankly wrong. And I would encourage her to speak to some people who have come from authoritarian states and escaped those places and come to Australia and been able to have all the freedom and prosperity that you get in Australia, the freedom to vote, the freedom to speak your minds, to pray as you wish, to peacefully assemble. We've got to put things in perspective here, honestly, because Australia is still a magnificent democracy, and there is a damn good reason why millions of people want to come to our shores every single year. And it's because we are free, because we accept people from around the world, because we're wealthy, and that is all underpinned by a liberal democracy.
Terry Butler.
But I'm sorry to ask Alan a question, but...
No, you can't ask him a question. You can say your comment.
I will say my comment, and my comment is this. I understand why you would respond to that part of the question and not the substantive parts about incursions on liberties.
There was about 5 or 6 points that she made beforehand, and we could debate every single one of those. They were all made in terms of assertions, so I didn't want to go through every single one.
But you must
The key point that she was making was that we've all of a sudden becoming an authoritarian state, which we are not. I mean, the fact that we can have
let's let Terry Butler answer the question as to whether... Do you think the questioner has a point?
One must... I don't think that you could properly describe Australia as an authoritarian state, but you must accept that hand in hand with concerns about democratic legitimacy are concerns about incursions of civil liberties. And you must accept that based on the reaction from, I think, across the Australian community to the police raids on Annika Smethurst's house. And I think you probably have to accept that from the comments that were made about the difficulties in obtaining access to documents through freedom of information. And I think that the questioner kind of let you off the hook a little bit by giving you something to respond to that was a little bit of hyperbole, but the underpinning issues, I think, do need a response from your government.
Alan, can I ask you whether can I ask a question?
Actually, I prefer if you just make comments and let him respond to them.
Can I suggest...
that I respond to your comment?
That you read Gillian Triggs's book, Speaking Up.
Yeah.
If you haven't already, the former...
I know Gillian.
You know Gillian. And because Gillian outlines in stark and evidence-based terms the number of our civil liberties that have been eroded over the last 10 years, particularly in relation to the anti-terrorism laws. I agree, we are not living in an authoritarian state, but it is a frightening list of the contraction of our rights and liberties that we have fought hard for in the past.
I mean, this is you've raised a really complex matter in terms of the balance which is to be struck when you're dealing with national security, and you're balancing that out, the safety of the community, with some of those matters. And we take national security very, very seriously. We've had, what is it now? I think a dozen serious attempts of mass killings in Australia, which have been averted because of the strength of our national security settings and our national security agencies. I think we can have robust debates around that balance which you're describing, but I think we've actually got the balance pretty right. I mean, general in relation to a couple of other points which...
I think Australian citizens would be terrified if they actually realised how many of their rights have been eroded in the name of our freedom.
I think our Skype question is trying to get back to make a point. Let's just see if she's there. Go ahead. Yeah.
I did want to respond to Alan Tudge and say I have travelled widely. I have family, Eastern European Jews who come to Australia, and I have visited other authoritarian states. I suppose my point wasn't that we are an authoritarian state now, but I am concerned a bit about the apathy and that maybe we are just creeping slowly towards that.
Okay, Alan, would a Bill of Rights help?
I personally don't support a Bill of Rights, and because it basically means it puts power into the hands of the courts and away from the Parliament. And we've seen that in the United States, speaking of a great democracy which has a Bill of Rights. I think we've actually done very well in Australia. Our system is inherited from the United Kingdom, of course, and we've generally been a country which has very robust rights, very strong freedoms, and I think that's underpinned us well in terms of today and into the future.